everyone, welcome to this video for the Rune Forge Adventure Book 2 for the D100 Dungeon series. This is actually Book 7, which might seem a bit confusing because we're calling it Adventure Book 2, but there's a couple of adventure books now out for D100 Dungeon and they're named 1 and 2, but they're actually Book 3 and 7 in the series of all the D100 Dungeon books, so I hope that explains that. You will need the core rulebook, the D100 Dungeon rulebook, to play this adventure book, and let's take a look at what it says on the back. So it says the Rune Forge adventure book introduces a different way of playing D100 Dungeon and will give you choices much like a choose your own adventure game. It uses all of the D100 Dungeon rules from the main rulebook with a few modifications. Also included are new rules called random dungeons that can be implemented into any of your games when you're playing a quest, campaign or using the World Builder expansion. Okay, so we'll have a bit of a dive into the book. I think we'll use just the hardback edition for this video. If you haven't seen the video I did for Book 3, the Dragon Armour, check that out because these two books are very similar in their actual format in regards what they actually do for D100 Dungeon. So primarily D100 Dungeon is a game where you play a quest, and when you come to the end of a quest, and the quests are always set in dungeons, you go off and then you do it before your next quest phase. The dungeon that you're playing in is all random, and you roll on tables to generate the dungeon before you. With the adventure book series, these kind of take control a bit more of that randomness, and there's an actual specific dungeon sheet that you use for playing these games. So let's take a look at that. The dungeon sheet can be found here at the back of the book, and you can see it's 20 square dungeon, and each area gets added as you discover them by the book itself. Okay, so I won't go into too much details of how you play the adventure book series because that's already been covered in that book for Book 3, so do check that out. But we'll do a thumb through and just go over what the book contains. So you can see there's a little bit of information about how you use the mapping game, which is another accessory for D100 Dungeon with this actual book. There's information there of how you can implement that into your game. Then it gets on to the adventure book rules and how you play and how you map the dungeon, how you do the turn sequence of events, diagram orientation, how you orientate your dungeon as it's being discovered, which in the adventure book series you don't orientate the map, you're adding them exactly as they are in the book, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Okay, a little bit of information about paragraphs and escaping monsters and so forth. Then you actually get on to the story of the Rune Forge. This is based around a Rune Forge set in the world of D100 Dungeon, the world of terror, and a little bit of information there of how you get into the game, and then you have to look at encountering some monsters before you actually get on to the main story. The main story always starts at paragraph 1 in these books, and there's certain rules to follow. So when you find an area, you then take that area and you map it on your map sheet, and like we said before, on these map sheets what you do is you wouldn't change the orientation. So in normal games of D100 Dungeon you would have your map like that at the start with the dungeon entrance at the bottom, and you would draw your map on, and then if you was going to go in that direction down a pathway you would turn the book around and then you would head off down there, and the next map you added would be copied directly from the table M mapping, and you would add it in this space here as it's shown in the book, and then if you went that way you'd turn it that way and so forth. In these games you just keep this map sheet completely landscape, and you just copy these diagrams that you come across in the book directly to the map as they appear. And then there's a few little rules to follow, like putting these arrows in telling you in which direction you go, and they're pointing towards paragraphs. So if we added that to the map sheet and then we decided to turn right, we would then turn to paragraph 6, and so you would then turn to paragraph 6 and follow its instructions and so forth. And sometimes you'll be asked to move away from these main 20 paragraphs. The 20 paragraphs are all showing map diagrams, and sometimes, in or vastly most cases in the game, you'll be instructed away from these areas and you'll turn to a paragraph in the book somewhere, follow its instructions, just like a choose your own adventure game really, and then you'll eventually have to come back to this paragraph where you're in this area and choose another exit and so forth. Okay, so I won't go into too many details about the individual instructions, but it might be nice to just have a look at the story behind the Rune Forge. So I'll read a bit of this section out. So the starts off with an actual story paragraph. So it says, deep in the mountains to the northeast of the arcane tower is the Rune Forge. It was built by the dwarves exactly 100 years after they completed the arcane tower. Work began in the year -2489 and took just 9 years to complete. The Council of Seven, who commissioned its construction, chose its location beneath the Iron-Torn Mountains in an effort to hide it away from prying eyes. But, alas, it fell foul to a powerful demon named Vakanar. Vakanar is one of a handful of demon lords that first emerged from the Demon Gate after its construction in -2790. He craved a huge arcane power and set off on a mission to capture the White Tower. Along the way he summoned a horde of minions, but when he reached the arcane tower he learnt of a more powerful structure being built, the Rune Forge. He changed course and waited for its completion. While the dwarfs dug, he planned the attack, and the day the Rune Forge was finished, Vakanar and his minions devoured its caverns, spreading torture and fire into its darkest corners. Many dwarves escaped with their lives, but an unlikely few were left behind and were tortured to death to reveal the secret of the 9 rune crystals the Arcane Council placed within its depths. 1 crystal for each scripture of magic, and 2 more for balancing the arcane power of the forge. Numerous battles took place to regain its control, but alas, the Arcane Council and their battle mages failed to breach its depths. Then, after the great icing of -2300 and the melting of -1400, the location of the Rune Forge became lost. The lair of Vakanar, another name for the Lost Forge, is now where the Demon Lord and his minions use the power of the 9 arcane crystals to sustain and power their existence, preventing them from diminishing back to the demon realm. Okay, so and that's the story behind the Rune Forge, and then you have to go off and delve the depths of the Rune Forge. You've come across it, and eventually safeguard it from the demon incursions. So a little bit about the story. Okay, so you begin playing, and then you begin encountering the different areas of the dungeon. I won't, like I say, I won't go into too many details. I'll just do a thumb through, and then we'll get on to the last part of the book, which is random dungeons. Okay, so you'll be playing this and flipping back and forth between the different pages, doing different skill tests and encountering different monsters and so forth, puzzling your way through the Rune Forge. Okay, so there we are, almost at the end. I think the Dragon Armour book was 100 paragraphs long. This one is 120, I think. No, 125. No, even further than that. So it's been a while since I wrote this, a while since I played it, so it's hard to remember sometimes. So I think it was 100. I won't say anymore. I keep getting it wrong. 155 paragraphs in this one. These are area markers if you're using the mapping game. Front and backs. There's the sheet which is available for download from the MK Games website. I'll put the links to that in the description below. And then you use a special encounter table when you're playing the Rune Forge. I believe all of these monsters that you're rolling on are actually found within the different supplements. There's no new monsters actually added to this table for this particular book. And then we get on to this section called Random Dungeons. So this is basically if you want to play a dungeon and you don't want to be constrained by success and failure of a dungeon, you just want to have a dungeon bash, just go down and explore random dungeons. You can create a random dungeon by making a D100 dungeon roll, and you can do it at the end of your before your next quest phase, or a settlement action. When you come to an end, you can then roll for a random dungeon and then go off and play it, and you roll for the random dungeon. It gives you the encounter modifier, the number of areas. So each random dungeon you have to explore a number of areas. So if you rolled the Dungeons of Dread, your encounter modifier would be -5 on your encounter table, and you would need to explore 1d3 plus 10 areas. So as long as you added, say you rolled a 3, you would have to enter a dungeon and map exactly 13 dungeons, and then you would encounter a special monster. In this case, the Dungeons of Dread is a white, and there's some special rules that you need to apply as well. So all monsters gain +5 attack value and +1 defense. So when you're rolling for your random monsters whilst you're in that dungeon, you apply that as well. And then there's a RP value, which is a reward point value. So the harder the random dungeon is, the lower your RP value. So I think it goes up to 23, and your reward point value is stored on your adventure sheet. When you accumulate enough, you can trade them in for some rewards, and you do that at I believe that's the end of a before your next quest phase, or at the start of a before your next quest, or a settlement action. So you do the random dungeons after the before your next quest phase or the settlement action, and then your reward points are spent before those two things. Okay, I don't think there was no fail penalty for this. So random dungeons have no fail penalty. You can simply quit at the start of any turn. If you've quit, then the next time, if you quit a random dungeon, then the next time that you actually come to have a before your next quest phase or a settlement phase, you can't roll for another random dungeon because you quit it the last time. Okay, and there's information there about how you apply that. And then once you've got a few of these reward points, like I say, there's some special rules there for while you're performing a random dungeon as well. And you get to spend your reward points, and there's a table here that you basically choose from, so you don't need to roll on this table. And it's got a reward point cost. So for instance, if you wanted to trade in 90 reward points for a superior weapon, you can go ahead and do that. It tells you what book to reference that special reward from. So superior weapon is found in book 1 on table TC, and you would spend the 90 reward points and then look up the details of that on the on that table, and then you'll be able to get that specific item. So it's a way, as well as having a bit of fun and getting some loot while you're on an actual random dungeon, it's actually a way of working towards a specific item that you might want. at the bottom here you've got things like beasts. You can choose a beast with health points of 8, tells you what book to go to and so forth, or a dragon egg as well. So there's all sorts of things that you can do there to fine-tune finding specific items. What's the cheapest on the table? So we've got a reward point of 2, which is a special ingredient from book 4. So if you know about book 4, if you saw the video or you have book 4, there was a new table added called IA for the Arcanists rules in there, and so if you're a magic user, you could choose a specific ingredient off of that table for just 2 points. So might be quite handy if you're struggling to find ingredients to use for your spells and so forth. So there's all kind of things on there that could be quite useful. Okay, so I think that pretty much concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and what we're going to do in the next video is start taking a look at some of the accessories for D100 Dungeon. So I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, take care. Bye for now.